Hola, me parece un profesor ahí muy serio.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, bien, bien. Mm.
¿Trabaja el micrófono? In this rain.
Bien.
Funciona el micrófono.
So what you need to do is to kill the mic for that computer that you are, the computer underneath of the projector. Kill the mic. Only leave the mic from the owl, okay?
Sorry.
Hi there. I'm here on two computers.
Hi, Wayne, I want to do a sound check to make sure that your microphone is working fine.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
And I can hear you.
Okay, very good. So
Bravo.
you're good to start. When you started, I'm gonna pass the baton to you. I'm gonna
Okay,
I'll make you host.
okay, great. But we have a few minutes yet.
Hello, everyone. I'm already a panelist. Sorry I can't be there in person.
Hey, Jim.
Good evening.
So Ebenezer, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to begin because we have quorum, okay?
Okay, very good, Wayne.
All right. So it is actually 7:01 p.m. Welcome all. I'm Wayne Benjamin, Chair of the Land Use Committee for Manhattan Community Board 12. Ebenezer, are we recording? Bravo. So once again, I'm Wayne Benjamin, Chair of the Land Use Committee for Manhattan Committee Number 12. I want to welcome everyone to the March committee meeting. And before we get into the agenda, I'd like to have my fellow committee members introduce themselves. So starting at my left.
I'm Vivian Ducat. I'm the public member of this committee.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Viola. I am a member of this committee and the licensing committee, as well as the secretary for the board.
I'm O.C. Cuminer.
I am Heidi Guzman.
And online, we have Jim Berlin. Jim, would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Jim Berlin. I'm the board parliamentarian. I've been on the board for a while. And again, I apologize for not being there with you. Well, I'm sort of there.
You're not here in person, but you're here virtually, so that's all that counts. We appreciate your attendance. So we've got a few things on the agenda for tonight. Before we get into that, I just want to remind or let the Land Use Committee and participants know that this Saturday, March 7th, is the 2024 Annual Preservation Conference, co-sponsored by the Historic Districts Council and the West Harlem Community Preservation Organization. It will be held at City College School of Architecture, and that starts at 9:00 a.m. I believe it's from 9 until 3. You can actually look this up online. I think I attended the last 2 or 3 conferences, so they're always quite interesting, and they're dealing with, preservation issues uptown. So once again, that is this Saturday, March 9th at City College Spitzer School of Architecture from 9 until 3 p.m. It's the annual preservation conference, and it's entitled "The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly: The Impact of Government Policies on Neighborhoods." Something we never discuss, right? So the first item on the agenda is a discussion with the Manhattan Borough President's Office on a resolution that Community Board 12 passed in October of 2023 pertaining to planning guidelines for new housing development in Washington Heights and Inwood. And it's in response to the Manhattan Borough President's Housing Report, which was released late January of last year. The Land Use Committee discussed that at several meetings, and at the October meeting, passed a resolution outlining 8 points that we thought were critical for developments to. Let me promote some. I will get to that, but let me just finish my. I saw your comment, Natalie. I'll get to that. So a few points that we thought it was critical for the elected officials who represent us to champion, because the community board is often or typically not at the table when the projects are being discussed and planned. And it's only when there is either a requirement for a public meeting or a requirement for a meeting because of, some discretionary action that we finally see the project. And at that time, it is typically a fait accompli. We're told that there is a public hearing or something or some approval that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So whatever comments we have, it's too late to have any meaningful change. So the 8 items that were outlined in the resolution are as follows: to define affordability by the area median income in Washington Heights and Inwood, as opposed to the citywide area median income. And that's obvious because in Washington Heights and Inwood, and in most of Upper Manhattan, the AMI is about 50% of the citywide. So if you're using just the citywide demographic data and you're saying it's affordable, it's not affordable to the folks who live uptown. And as it was pointed out a couple of years ago, actually at a housing seminar held by the American Institute of Architects, New York City has a reputation of being an affluent city, but it really is a moderate income city with pockets of wealth. And the pockets of wealth often define the city. But this is a perfect case where those pockets of wealth do not represent Washington Heights and Inwood. The second thing is the architectural design of new development should respect the scale, character, and density of their surroundings. So it's not saying there shouldn't be new development, but the new development should fit in and be mindful of where it is occurring. New residential developments must address the range of local housing needs. For example, senior housing or supportive housing or housing for youth aging out of foster care, depending upon the neighborhood and also depending on what's happening in the city. We need to have housing that is addressing the spectrum of needs as opposed to having, lots of either, luxury condos, or for that matter, lots of very low income housing where if you are a teacher or a bus driver, your civil service income is too much to afford it. So we need to look at the range and make sure we're addressing the range. The fourth is the design and allocation of residential units must address local housing needs and demographics, i.e., provide family-size units as opposed to a concentration of studio and one bedrooms, and have thoughtful architectural layouts. And we've often pointed out, if you look at some of the older apartment buildings uptown, we have quite livable apartments, and some of the newer apartments are either layouts are smaller, or the layouts just are not as thoughtful as some of the older buildings, and therefore not quite as livable. The fifth item is to consider mixed-use development where there are 1- and 2-story buildings currently on wide avenues with retail overlays to allow for new retail and commercial spaces in addition to residential and community facility. Mixed-use buildings are nothing new in New York City or in Manhattan. So having ground floor retail or even second floor office space or community facility with apartments above that is, something that makes a lot of sense. And we think that should be considered when we're on, as I said, when we're on wide streets with retail overlays. And there are a number of situations in Washington Heights, typically along Broadway, where you will find on major street like Broadway, Amsterdam, a 1-story, 10,000 square foot building at the corner. And the underlying zoning can allow something bigger than that. And if we were to tweak the zoning in those areas, you can see a greater intensity of development that addresses a range of needs. The sixth item is to incorporate sustainable design features in all new development and substantial renovation projects. I think that just makes sense. Sustainability is something that's quite critical. Pursue development opportunities for adaptive reuse and revitalization of vacant or underutilized buildings. That's something that comes right out of the borough president's report. And also prioritize the development of vacant lots. And that, quite frankly, is something that Community Board has stressed for years in our capital priorities, that if we were to look at all of the city, and more recently we have modified it, the city and privately owned vacant lots, and to put together a development strategy to get funds targeted to those sites so that they could be developed in an affordable manner, that would begin to develop housing similar to the approach that is now being advanced with City of Yes for Housing Opportunity, which is focused on having a little bit more housing in all of the areas as opposed to trying to do it with like massive new developments. And heretofore, and I don't know if this was official policy or not, but it seems like HPD, HDC, if you didn't have a large 100-unit or more development, there wasn't a lot of interest in advancing that. Now it seems that there is some interest in infill sites and smaller projects that are on smaller lots. So those are the 8 things that were outlined. We sent it to Mayor Adams, but we also, of course, copied the borough president, the public advocate, our elected officials. So we reached out to the borough president's office to have them join us. and to share with us, their response to the reso and, how they are going about, taking into account what we have shared with it. So with that, we have Lizette from the Manhattan Borough President's Office, who is the Director of Land Use and Planning. Lizette, the floor is yours.
Hi, thanks Wayne for the background on the reso, for the intro and for having me tonight. Yeah, I think so when we released our housing plan a little over a year ago at this point, part of that, we urged community boards to really give a lot of consideration. We intentionally broke down the report itself into sites by community board, and really wanted to hear from boards, what their thoughts were, and even more specifically, right, to the extent that there were sites in there that community boards had concerns about. We also wanted to hear, basically, if we don't develop housing here, where should we do it? And so we're really happy that that Board 12 has taken up its consideration of our housing report, and given a lot of thought not just to individual sites but also how they want to see development overall in the community. I think it's always a really good thing when any community group or community board gets together and puts out their principles, as general guiding principles for development. I think it sends a really strong message to the community, right? It's to the development community, that the people want development and they want it in a certain kind of way, and that there are priorities like senior housing, supportive housing, certain AMI bands that will go a long way if they take those elements into consideration. So I'm really happy to see this, and look forward to hearing what other folks have to say, in addition to everything that's in the reso.
So I guess my question is, it's been a few months since the reso was adopted by the board. And so the Borough President's Office, planning staff, executives, that you've had a chance to, review it, digest it. Are there specific, thoughts on the reso, specific thoughts on how the Borough President's Office can work with us to advance these principles?
I think putting something out like this is, like I said, it sends a really strong message to people who want to develop in Board 12. I think for our office, we look at each project on a case-by-case basis. So, it's very important for us as part of our review process, whether it's ULURP or otherwise, to think about and to be aware of what kinds of priorities the community boards have. So to that end, this is a very important document for us to have. And again, I can't stress enough how much of a good thing it is for the boards to be proactive and setting the parameters for the kind of development that they want to see. I think this is something that, when you have developers coming to your board, and if it's, whether it's a fully baked development, the development community is going to come back with project after project, right? And so making sure that this is sort of a live document, right? I've seen other boards kind of have their principles for development or their priorities for their district, and it's the kind of document that they share over and over again and make sure that it's circulated often enough that people are aware of what their priorities are. So I think, this is the beginning of both, sharing this far and wide for you, I hope, and also making sure that that it's like I said, a live document that adjusts to positions of the boards or to shifting needs within the district.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. Whether it's this reso or any planning document, if it's put on a shelf, it's not terribly useful. It needs to be a live document. And to that end, the Housing and Human Services Committee is working on a companion resolution to this that focuses more on the, obviously, the housing and human services needs. But it is something that we continue to focus on. And quite frankly, the Land Use Committee and the board took to heart Mark's charge last January for to be proactive and to, look at the plan. And we've actually identified a number of sites that are not in the plan, and the portal that was created by the Borough President's Office that allow folks to just submit it, I think is great. And I don't know if anyone has done it individually, but we did share at one of the meetings that, there isn't a need for folks to go through the Land Use Committee or go through the community board. They can go directly to the portal and say, hey, here's a site, take a look at it. From the perspective of the committee members, are there questions on how the Borough President's Office is responding to this resolution? I think one of the things we talked about doing a couple months ago is not to wait until we're doing our expense and capital budget items to find out that the follow-up that was supposed to happen didn't happen. So this is the first step in making sure we follow up. So are there things? OC? I'm sorry.
So on Sunday at the Mark Levin State of the Borough, he specifically indicate that the average rent in New York City is, if I remember correctly, the number is $4,044-ish. I believe that the majority of Inwood, Washington Heights residents cannot afford such rent. So we know that, and thank you for acknowledging that, Lizette. But what are the plans to go forward, and how can we implement AMI that is related to us? Because that average rent is equal displacement, period. This is even for those residents that can afford something like that. This is just the average. And so that is equal displacement of really, I feel hard to say it, but all of us, to the majority of the current residents of Inwood and Washington Heights. So I would like to hear, what are the specific plans to mitigate something like that? How can we come and say, you know what, going forward, you're a developer, you'll have to comply with ABC. How can we enforce something that the majority of the residents of Inwood, Washington Heights are not going to be displaced?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think, so you bring up a point that comes up time and time again in every one of our 12 community boards. I think the AMI mix of any project getting subsidy and providing, affordable housing as a result of that is a really careful negotiation, right? And at the end of the day, it has to pencil out for the developer, but that doesn't mean that there can't be a mix that ensures that there are AMIs that are reflective of the local community. And we've seen in many cases boards sort of advocate for exactly what you're saying, which is a mix that is not just all skewed towards higher income levels, but also includes low income and even very low income households. So I think it's I know the reso says, I think if I remember correctly, in no particular order, but really it's including the AMI issue as the first point there. was no surprise to me, but also very, very on the nose, because it's something that we hear often from communities. And I think, again, like explaining this and setting this as a priority, will be very helpful when a developer who is doing their due diligence sees that this is an important issue for this community. Certainly, as part of our, as I've sort of mentioned already, as part of our review of projects, whether it's ULURP or otherwise, this is one of those elements that we give a lot of thought and consideration to, right? And we are almost in every case having some conversation with an applicant or a developer about the AMI mix, and making sure that it is something that will be successful and also beneficial for the community.
Tracy?
I was interested in knowing whether or not your office had any concerns or critiques about this resolution. I'm really pleased to hear that, our issue or the issues we've highlighted in our resolution are issues across the city. However, and you also were very helpful in stating, by keeping it live, it will make it more powerful. But is there some sort of poison dart in here? Is there something in here that you think, isn't working, just so we're aware of it on the front end, at least from your office's point of view?
No, look, I think the reso is, it's not so definitive, right? Like it's not, you're not here saying that not meeting one of these 8 points is a deal breaker for the board, right? I think that you're clear that these are guidelines that you want developers to follow. These are priorities. I've been coming to and listening in on land use meetings for this board for, I think, 5 or 6 years now. And I think, you're a reasonable group, right? And so it's not like it reads, or anyone who knows CB12s, I think understands that it's not a, you must follow all of these points type of document. The other thing I'll say is, and I probably should have said this at the top, which is, this is a way to say yes, right? This is not a document. It doesn't read like a document that is saying, no, we don't want housing. It's saying yes, and we want it, points 1 through 8. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's a really good thing that it's out there. And I think above and beyond that, you all should be promoting it and getting it into the hands of people who are coming before the board and circulating it.
Anthony?
Thank you, Chair. So my question is, to the extent that you've had meetings with developers since this resolution has been passed in Community District 12, have you raised any of these principles in those conversations explicitly on our behalf to help, as you put it, send the strong message that this is what Community Board 12 is interested in?
We have not. I have not been in any meetings with any developers who are contemplating projects in Board 12. I think as a matter of course, for our meetings with developers, quite frankly, I'm not sitting in meetings with check-in meetings with developers to talk about general development issues. They're usually coming to us to give us briefings on specific projects. And so as a matter of course, during those conversations, we will always, at a minimum, ask if they are in conversation with the community board. And as part of that conversation, whether the answer is yes or no from the developer, we always take that time to make sure that they are aware of any specific positions or recent similar projects that the board has. So this would fall clearly within that category, where we would at least bring this to their attention and make sure that they know that you all have produced this document.
Yeah, I see Jim Berlin's hand, but I just want to follow up on Anthony's question. Right now, HPD is working on an RFP planning process, whatever it is, for a site in Inwood. I'm sure HPD is having some conversations with the Borough President's Office. So in the context of that pending development, has the Borough President's Office raised these principles, which I think would all be, quite applicable to whatever is stated in the RFP?
Yeah, look, I know the folks at HPD who are working on this. I would imagine they're aware of this. We have no problem like reaching out to them and making sure that that's the case. I also think it's really powerful for them to hear that coming from the board as well, if they haven't already.
Jim Berlin.
Thank you. I want to compliment everyone, including our guests, because I think this discussion has been very helpful to me. It's very informative. It's good to hear that we've done the right thing by telling the world explicitly what our desires are. My only other comment, and this is just the reality we live in, if a developer owns a site and they stick within whatever zoning tells them to do, they can do whatever they want. And so, the key, I think, is, and that's what we're all doing, is convincing developers or educating developers so they can produce housing in this case that, fits with our community, because we don't want to gentrify. We don't want to drive people away. This is a community, and it's in its own very wonderful way functions very nicely. And we would just like it, to be enhanced. We don't want it upset. And I think, I'm glad to hear that sort of we're doing as much as we can to, push our views. Thank you.
Daniel?
Thank you,
I guess I have a question for us. Like, do we have a list of like what that looks for us? Like certain AMIs?
That is what Housing and Human Services will be working on,
Right?
more specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just like curious because I was just like seeing it in a way that like when we like walk around and like we see like certain buildings, and it's just like kind of like, oh, like this building fits this neighborhood more than like this
Yeah.
building.
Well, I mean, there is demographic data that is produced and released annually by, HPD, the Furman Center, any number of people. So you can look at what the income is for Washington Heights and Inwood based upon, data from last year. And if it's at 52% or 48% of the citywide, you can look at the subsidy programs and see which programs and at what tiers the units would fit. I mean, for example, the ELIZA, which uses the ELA program, I think stands for extremely low income something together. I think the maximum income is like at 60% of AMI. And so when you look at what the rents are and the income, it fits pretty nicely, with Washington Heights and Inwood. If you look at some of the other developments going up, not just in Inwood, but I mentioned a year or so ago, there's one in East Harlem that I think is finished where it's affordable because they're income caps, but the minimum income required to afford something in that building is like, I think,
There's
$72,000.
a lot of those.
But the median in CB11 East Harlem is like 52. So you're already, like 20,000 or so over the median. So that's not as good a fit because you have to be at the upper end of the income range in CB11 to afford the lower end of that affordable. And that's the kind of mismatch we're trying to avoid. It's not that they can't have a mixture of incomes, but it shouldn't be, you have to be at the upper end in order to afford even the cheapest thing.
I just wanted to comment, Lizette, point taken on us doing the outreach with respect to HPD. I was just looking on the resolution and the commissioner of HPD was copied on this resolution. So to whatever extent you also, and we'll be happy to do our own follow-up, but to whatever extent you also can provide this to HPD and include this in your conversation would be greatly appreciated.
Of course.
So, Dave, I see you, Dave Tom, you've put a number of things in the chat, but for the purposes of the meeting, and the minutes, we need to, I guess, have it spoken. So I'm going to find the spot where I can allow you to speak. And then you can share with us, what you're saying what you're sharing in the chat. So Dave, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Thanks, Wayne. I'm not sure if I'm in a spot where I can speak. It's a little bit noisy where I am. But just very briefly, I was trying to put a single thing in the chat, which was for those who are interested. There was a white paper done back when MIH was first being studied, and that looked at different levels of subsidy and affordability and how that compared to financial feasibility for projects, which is where those 4 categories of subsidy and MIH came from in the first place. So, you know, a lot of these questions were asked and looked at, and it's an interesting white paper to read for anyone that wants to delve into that research and the scenarios that they ran.
Okay. And I will, we will pull the link from this, or just Google that white paper. Graham, I see your hand. You should be able to unmute now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, thank you. I just want a couple of comments. First, I think I just want to thank the committee for putting together those resolutions. I think they're great. But I also think that you know, I was reading the report today and the borough president's report, and I think I caution against being a little complacent with Mark Levine's approach to development. He has promised to fast track all those properties that he has identified. And this is what I'm seeing from his, and he's been boasting about fast tracking one of them on the Upper West Side, even within the last couple of days, that he's able to turn these around in 5 days. That's really concerning to me because to me, that's very disempowering of communities. And what makes it more concerning to me is that one of those properties is 524 Fort Washington Avenue. So if you have followed the news recently, 524 Fort Washington, I know this board is aware of it, is a proposed 23 stories right above the A train, which would go 15 stories above Fort Washington and Fort Bennett Park. The community is organizing around that. And the borough president should know that, especially since he lives in the neighborhood. I can't speak for everybody at this point. You know, I'm not a spokesperson, but my take is that people aren't saying leave the lot vacant, but they want, you know, there's a feeling, I can speak for myself, that there has to be some reasonability here. The plans that I've been seeing include, I think, 5 floors of amenities and community facilities, which generally mean charter schools in our area, which is also going to make the number of people very unhappy. And I know the developer is interested in putting a charter school there because they brought it up to one of the elected officials. So I just want to say, to sum up, I really hope that the borough president reconsiders his fast tracking plan and works with the community that he lives in, and he lives around the block, to make this a better project, and works with the community board and makes a better project that could work for the whole community. And that's going to take more than 5 days. So I appreciate you listening to me, and thank you.
Yeah, and Graham, that is a perfect example of a project and a site where it's important to have the new development consider and, you know, fit in with its site, because, you know, the topography alone is challenging, and the proposal from years ago that, you know, didn't move forward because the developer went bankrupt, treated the site as if it were flat. So you had, I think, an 18 or 23 story building sitting halfway up a hill, And so since it was sitting halfway up a hill, it towered even more. And interestingly, when at that time, Community Board 12 was working with City College on the land use and planning study, and that was one of the 3 sites that City College looked at, and they said you could achieve the same FAR, the same density in a sort of a mid-rise building that kind of hugged the site more and may have needed some, modifications to, backyard or site coverage, which you could ask for through BSA or city planning. And, here again, we have a building that is dramatically out of scale, with this area. And even if you were put this building on Broadway, it would be pretty big. I mean, if it were near Presbyterian, it wouldn't feel as large, but anywhere else, it feels, pretty big. So I think that's a perfect example of needing to be thoughtful about what you are designing and building based upon where you are putting it.
I appreciate the history and all that, Wayne. Thank you. And yeah, I just hope that the borough president, I know he's very committed to creating as much housing as possible. I know that, but there's always room to work and make things better.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for bringing that point up, Graham. I just want to talk a little bit about the fast track that you mentioned. So, yeah, so when we released the housing plan, we did make a commitment that any sites that were included in the report, if they went through ULURP, which not all of them would have to, but that if they went through the Uniform Land Use Review procedure, that we would expedite our review of that application. That is really, so basically, as I think most folks in this meeting will be aware, but just so we're all on the same page here, when the ULURP clock starts, right, when an application is submitted and it enters the public review process, the community board gets 60 days, the borough president gets 60 days to review and submit a recommendation. It then goes to the planning commission for 60 days, and then it goes to the city council for 50 days. And so our commitment was that we were going to take our 30-day review period and shorten it to 5. Now, I also served as land use director under the former borough president, and in her tenure, we actually expedited other ULURPs for different reasons. But in announcing this, really, we are taking 25 days from our review period. And, I think part of that decision came thankfully with a land use team. I don't do it alone, I couldn't, but a land use team that is always tuned into all of the meetings, and as well as a community affairs team that is always tuned into the meetings that the community boards have. And really, like, realistically, we are preparing for our recommendation at a point in time in which it's going before the community board, right? And so the time that we're taking away from our review period, we have found, and we've expedited three projects, 2 of which were 100% affordable, one which is for a mixed income project. But we found that we are able, it's a little bit more fire under our seats, but we don't mind it, right? And we are just kind of taking everything from the community board and looking at it much more quickly and still giving it the same amount of thought, but then kind of putting pen to paper really in a faster fashion and really kind of submitting within that 5-day period. And then on the site on Fort Washington Avenue, this is the kind of thing where I could be mistaken, and our report did have 171 sites. It also went out a year ago. I try to keep all the sites fresh in my head, but I do make mistakes here and again. But I don't think this was included in our housing plan. So I'm not sure that the fast track commitment that we had would apply to this. I'm also, I'm not aware, and again, I'm sure that there are more than a couple of people in this meeting who could illuminate me, but I don't think it's going through ULURP, at least not presently. But would love to connect with you, Graham, and anyone else who has concerns about the development, and see how we can be helpful there, and whether it's ULURP or not, how we can listen to the concerns from folks in the area.
Right.
I'm gonna drop my email in the chat so that folks have it.
Okay, and Lizette, it's, to our knowledge, it's not going through ULURP at this juncture because it is a large site. And as of right, there's a lot of FAR that can, be deployed. And part of the problem is the design approach that's taken, and that goes back to what the folks at City College said, more than 15 years ago. I mean, that you can achieve similar FAR, but if you can work with the site in a more sensitive manner. And we've had a couple of instances where, 50 or 60 people have showed up at the land use committee because they saw something in social media, one of the renderings of the proposed development. And all of these renderings show absolutely huge buildings, looming over everything else. And it was pointed out to folks that, in addition to sharing their concern with the, land use committee and the community board, the borough president's office and other elected officials should be contacted, and that the borough president lives near the site. So that, they may want to point that out to him. And I'm pretty certain we passed this information along to the borough president's office with an image of one of the renderings. So it should be something that is known to someone in the borough president's office.
I am sure it is, and if I'm more than certain that Mark could tell me a ton about it. So I've dropped my information in the chat, so folks can reach out. It's when in doubt, always send it to more than one person in our office. And just to clarify on the point of our expedited review, it wouldn't apply to this site as I understand it. So just wanted to clarify that. But of course, want to see how we can be helpful there.
Okay, Jim, is that an old hand or a new hand? Okay, did you have another question, Daniel?
No.
Okay. OC.
So one of the things that concerns me is that when you have a large development, and I'm talking about the tower looking development, it's almost like an opening, if you will, for the next development that will come around the corner. So if a developer come and ask for even a BSA application, like, well, the building next door or a block away is that tall. And so therefore, what is another one? And this is how you start, and I think Wayne spoke about it like years ago as well. You start changing the height of the neighborhood, one development after another. And that's really a risky situation. So whenever the BSA or Department of City Planning is approving something like that, they're not really looking into it. And they're not taking that as a consideration. And that is a problem. It's a major problem for other issues that, it's too long to mention it right now, but it's a serious problem.
Just to provide some background to what OC is talking about, it's the Municipal Art Society several years ago that did a study, and they were looking at downtown Brooklyn. And they said that if you look at all of the variances that were approved by BSA, they by default rezoned downtown Brooklyn.
I just wanted to point out that, West 184th Street Overlook Terrace is actually on the housing report. It's part of like.
Louder.
That, 184th, West 184th Street and Overlook Terrace is on the housing report. It's part of the privately owned market rate sites that that the housing reports has.
Okay, so it's in the report. So, you know, the concern raised by Graham is a real one.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, that is an alternative address for the Fort Washington Avenue site?
Yeah, because it, as I said, it's on a hill, so it has an address on Fort Washington and it has an address on Overlook.
Got it. Yeah, because it's a privately owned site, however, as we've already covered, there's no review that we do, right? It is essentially the developer submitting building plans to the Department of Buildings and getting approval for those. So there's no track for us to expedite again, and you know, that doesn't mean that we can't get involved. We do from time to time get involved and try to deal with developments that are as of right. And so yeah, look, I still look forward to connecting with Graham or anyone who wants to talk about it.
Yeah, and on that point, I just want to say that, you know, we understand that, as Jim Berlin said, and as we've discussed here, if a development is moving as of right, there's no discretionary city action, then there's nothing that the developer has to come to us to do, but that doesn't prevent particularly elected officials from outreaching and coordinating. And I know that Carmen De La Rosa's office has already had an initial meeting with the developers who claim to be open to coming and, you know, coordinating with the community board. I think they've indicated that the reports that were in social media or other papers are not quite accurate, that the project isn't, you know, ready to go. So I would think if the councilwoman's office, you know, can contact them and have a conversation, they would also be open to speaking to the borough president's office. So we will obviously continue to follow up. As I said, the Housing and Human Services Committee is working on a companion piece, and we'll check with them to see if they're going to take the lead in reaching out to, you know, the Commission of HPD. And we will also continue to coordinate with you and with the borough president because we just think it's critical for all of our elected officials to know where we are and for us to know, you know, where you are and how we can work together.
Great.
I was gonna say just a comment, and I think it's just an idea that I wonder if it will be useful if we make some sort of like a production or info video or something like that to have digitally, so then we can just send it to like developers, so they could be like, oh, okay, like if like the community wants like these like certain kinds of like buildings or developments out over here. Here are the people like letting us know kind of like situation, and where it's like a video that it's just like public, you know. Just an idea. I don't know.
I mean, it certainly makes sense to have some reference document materials that can readily be shared. And if someone wants to take on, you know, the task of creating a video,
yeah,
more power to them.
Yeah, like a script or something.
Volunteering?
No, I would love to like even just like figure that out, because it's just like, kind of like where it is like kind of like if we are to make this like a live document, you know, I would think like supplementing other things onto it.
It's something.
Will make it even more powerful.
Yeah, it's something the community board can certainly work on. But they said folks need to, you know, particularly on the IT side, need to commit to doing that. So with that, Lizette, thank you for joining us. We will follow up again. And as they say, you know where to reach us as well. Take care.
Great. Thanks for having me. And we look forward to seeing what comes out of the Housing Committee as well.
As do we. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
The next item on the agenda is a continued conversation with our friends at the Historic Districts Council. As you may recall, we launched a survey several months ago to get input from residents of Washington Heights Inwood on what they would like to see designated in terms of, buildings or districts. And it's been a few months that the survey has been live. And so we have Lucy Levine from the Historic Districts Council to give us an update on what the responses look like so far.
Thank you so much, Wayne. Hi, everybody. My name is Lucy Levine. It's really lovely to be here with you this evening. Thank you for having me. So yes, we have been working together, the Historic Districts Council and Manhattan CB12, on a survey of Washington Heights and Inwood, asking members of the community what sites or districts, or potential districts rather, they would like to see landmarked or designated, or receiving recognition for being meaningful, historic, beautiful, culturally significant places in the neighborhood. And since we launched the survey, we have actually received 86 responses. We launched the survey in both English and Spanish. We received all of our responses to the digital survey that HDC has in English. If the community board has received any responses in Spanish, we would be so happy for you to share them with us, and we can add them to our codified list. But so far, we at HDC have not received input from Spanish-speaking residents, and so we do have a Spanish communities liaison, Diego Raballo, who is going to do continued outreach. We do hope to reach as many people in the community as possible. But I'm here this evening just to share a little bit about the responses we have already received. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if I could, because I just have a few images of some of the sites that members of the community have shared with us. So I'm just going to go ahead and share screen. Host has disabled screen sharing, so I can't do that as of yet. Wayne, if you can
let me see what can be done about that.
If not, I can just do it verbally. I know that you are.
There should be a way to do this. Allowed to pin, no, make host.
You can make her a host.
Well, if I make you a co-host, you should be able to do that.
All right, thank you very much.
How is it now?
Let's see. Share screen. Oh, yes, I am ready to go. Perfect.
Very good.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen and let me view this as a slideshow. Okay, so can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Fabulous. Okay, so I just wanted to share some of the potential landmark sites and historic districts in CB12 that were shared with us via the survey. Because it won't be all of them. I just want to be clear, it's not going to be all of the sites that we received, but I'm going to begin with potential historic districts. So the first one is what was referred to in the survey by respondents as the Fort Washington Hudson Heights Cabrini Art Deco Historic District. Now, a full half of respondents suggested this district or buildings within it. So 43 respondents of the 86 said that they would be interested in a historic district bounded by 181st Street and Margaret Corbin Circle from either Broadway or Fort Washington Avenue to Chittenden. And within that, especially Hudson View Gardens, Castle Village, the 184th Street A train entrance, and the Hebrew Tabernacle. So I just wanted to show a few. I'm sure you're all familiar with those sites, but I just wanted to show a couple of images of those gorgeous places. So the interest, of course, in Hudson View Gardens and in Castle Village, and then the extraordinary tableau of them both together across Cabrini Boulevard. This is the 184th Street A train station. And then, of course, that's the Hebrew Tabernacle. And so just this extraordinary concentration of Art Deco architecture seems to have really moved the community because, as I said, fully half of respondents suggested those boundaries. And then when it came to other districts, there were 2 respondents who suggested a district bounded by Seaman Cooper Payson and 204th Street. So again, you're going from 43 respondents to 2. So that's it's not that this district would be less worthy, it's just that the interest is so dramatic in the other site, which is, if we're going to begin to pursue a district, I do think it should be that one. And then in terms of individual landmarks, there were 2 respondents who said the Apple Bank for Savings, again, an Art Deco structure. 2 respondents who said the Seaman Drake Arch, which, as you are aware, I'm sure, has faced many changes in its long life. And then, of course, there were also 2 respondents who said the Audubon Ballroom. Now, the Audubon Ballroom has, of course, faced development already, and there was, at that time, an effort to landmark it, which failed in that respect, although it was restored on the exterior. So there has been interest in landmark designation for the Audubon Ballroom for many, many years. So that is certainly not a new site to us at HDC. But those are just the ones that I wanted to highlight. Of course, those are not the only ones that were suggested. And I will, of course, share I think, Wayne, you have access to the full slate of responses, don't you? I'm going to start.
I'll have to check. I know I had access to the spreadsheet some time ago. I'll have to see if I still do. Okay,
I will make sure you do, and I will also share when I say that 43 respondents said a particular historic district, I will also share with you that codified set of data. So we have the raw data and then the codified set of data that I went through and culled, and I can share that with you as well. So. Oh, that facade is no longer extant. I did not know that. Thank you so much for making that clear to me. That's our answer to that. I'm so sorry that that's already the case.
We're getting different information. OC?
Yeah, I think it's Dave confused with the one on Dykeman between 207 and
Not Dykeman, 207 and Broadway.
A different.
One, I'm sorry,
one.
sorry, on a different one. It was Broadway between 207 and Isham. Thank you.
Okay, so that's a different site. Okay, got it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you for everybody for their input. If anybody has any questions around anything that I've shared or wants to share anything further with me, I'd really love to hear from all of you. These are just the responses we've gotten so far. It doesn't mean that we're done with the survey. It doesn't mean, that these are the choices that have already been made. This is just, what we've done so far with the raw data. So I'd just love to hear anything from you.
I see Jim Berlin's hand.
I'm one of the people who recommended the Apple Bank, and this is the one at 181st Street and Broadway.
Yes.
And not only does it have a magnificent exterior, and in fact, underneath the Apple Bank sign, incised into the rock, it says Harlem Savings Bank, because that was its original name. But the interior where the banking is done is this huge, magnificent space. It's been modified somewhat, but when I was a kid, I would just go there and gape. So now I suspect, by the way, since the Coliseum across the street has already been demolished, and Apple, by the way, is no longer using this building. They moved to a different office in a storefront. That they may want to do something with that site as well. And so this is the time we have to make noise, because insofar as, aspects of this site can be preserved, that would be a very good thing. And obviously, well, the Coliseum, that was sort of a mess before they tore it down. But, the Apple Bank, I think, a lot of it is still intact, and it's really gorgeous. In fact, I was hoping to get in there to take pictures, but it was already closed.
I see. Now, for an interior landmark, interior landmarks do have to be accessible to the public, so they can't be private spaces. Do you know if that interior is accessible to the public?
Well, it was it was where the people did their banking.
Right. But
So-
is the structure still in use as a bank, or we're not sure?
No, they moved out, so the structure is at the moment not being used, and that's
being
why
used
I
at all.
suspect.
Okay.
And right next to it is a small Citibank that maybe Citibank wants to do things too. And you know, the zoning there is interesting because I think one corner is R8 and one corner isn't, or something. It's very peculiar. So but that'd be a very nice development spot. So I think in general, which is my other remark, we as a committee should keep our eyes on that whole section.
Yeah.
There's a roll up, you know, a short building across the street. So, you know, thank you.
Yeah, the other interesting thing about the old bank buildings is if you look around the city, many of them that are no longer used as banks have not been demolished. They are converted to really elegant event spaces. If you look at, I think there are a couple of Cipriani's that are in old bank buildings. And there's another one in the 30s near Macy's that they make wonderful event spaces. Tracy.
When does the survey close?
The intention is for it to be ongoing for a while.
There's no date though?
No, not at present. I mean, we said we're going to post it on the website. It's in the newsletter now that goes out weekly, once a month. There are a couple of gift cards that applicants can be eligible. I don't think the community board can be, but so the idea is to keep getting feedback.
And we are continuously getting feedback. We launched the survey at the end of September. We got our first piece of feedback on October 3rd, and we got our most recent piece of feedback, I believe, yesterday. So people certainly are still responding. There are a couple of respondents who suggested sites that are already landmarked, such as the Morris Jamil Mansion. So when I codified the responses, I excluded sites that are already landmarked. But yes, just to make the community aware that we are receiving responses continually. So that's a really nice thing. And Wayne, I know that the community board has the survey in hard copy and paper. Have you received any hard copy responses that you can send us that we can input?
I just sent an email to the office to ask them if they've received, in particular, any of the surveys in Spanish.
Okay,
but
great.
I'll check with them to see if they received any of them.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
Daniel?
I wonder if
Louder.
I wonder if it would be more helpful to actually send out it's helpful to see that which ones they're like considering, and I wonder if it's like helpful to like send out like that strip of like addresses, like that landmark survey, and because I don't even think like anybody is like aware that's even happening on Cooper Street, where it's just like there's like 40 people.
But the idea is not to influence folks. The idea is to say for folks to tell us what they are interested in. And it doesn't matter if someone else is interested in it or not. It's like, well, what are you interested in?
I see. Okay, that makes more sense now.
Yeah, that's right. That's why it was so that way it stuck out. It was so sort of meaningful to me to realize, oh wow, we didn't give people any directions. All we said was, what is meaningful to you? What do you believe should be landmarked? And for fully half of the respondents to give us essentially the same answer, I thought was dramatic because, at no time did we say, what do you think of Art Deco architecture? What do you think of Hudson View Garden? We didn't say that. And everybody sort of collectively gave us that answer, which I thought was just a moving circumstance.
There is some background to that because there's been discussion of an Art Deco apartment house district or just an apartment house district. going back to when I first got on the board, so that's more than a dozen, years ago. And with the very first Six to Celebrate, Hello HDC, a lot of it focused on, Washington Heights and Inwood, particularly in Inwood. So many of the people may be, continuing to advocate for that. When LPC finally designated something in Washington Heights, Inwood, in that area, it was the smallest possible district out of everything that was suggested. It was like the tiniest possible district.
Natalie asks, I see in the chat, does the survey capture if respondents are owners or renters? We didn't have a designated question for that, but when we asked people's name and their, organization, whether they were answering for themselves or for an organization, a lot of people responded, as their co-op board, so to speak. So it's not, there's no specific answer for yes, I own or yes, I rent, but a number of people did identify themselves as members of a co-op board or president of a co-op board or something like that. So there was, a significant number of people who had an ownership stake. Yes.
Tracy, did you have your hand up?
I did. I was going to say is that, Art Deco is gorgeous, and I'm not saying that this isn't obviously what the community is saying, but it does also might lend itself to a particular campaign, and that might speak to even more support. But I just, these are, just to juxtapose it against the Shabazz Center where nobody lives, more people are more likely to put where they actually live, where they have an interest, rather than a building which, for historical purposes or other things, might be more worthy. I'm not saying it is. I'm just using it for argument's sake. Where nobody lives, they're, I'm just sort of saying is, I love the interest, but it might denote a campaign that doesn't detract from the focus, but that should be noted.
Yeah, but there's nothing that prevents folks from advocating for more from the Shabazz.
Oh, I didn't say that as well. My
Although-
point is that let's not just take it in terms of like, this is just an organic, oh my God, everyone is looking at Art Deco versus I'm just to use the example, there is isn't there a synagogue there? So there's like already a natural meeting place for people to advocate.
They showed it.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's also the reason why I pointed out that there has been a level of interest in an apartment house or an Art Deco, just whatever you call it, for a long period of time. So I'm not surprised that, and as a matter of fact, at this community board meeting, as Vivian pointed out, Congressman Espaillat has expressed interest in it. Individual, residents have expressed interest in it, and they've come before this committee many, many times to discuss it. And last year, there was someone who came forward with one building, I believe, on Cooper, and because at that time, at that time, the windows were going to be changed. And my question is, why are you only looking at one building as opposed to what's been talked about for years, which is a district?
And they
Because-
changed the windows.
Yeah, but but the point is, there is, you can't wait until there's an ongoing project, because we
Right.
know how long it takes for landmarks to do anything, if they do anything.
If they do.
Okay, but let me stop.
Right. So to that point, thank you so much for bringing that up, Wayne. Yes, 101 Cooper Street. We did at HDC, we did support that RFE. We got a response from RFE means request for evaluation, which is something, it's a form that you send to the Landmarks Preservation Commission saying, we're interested, we'd like for you to review this. And the LPC responded to us, declining, saying it wasn't worthy and all this. And so to the point around, whether there's a campaign or not, speaking from a perspective of the Historic Districts Council, there needs to be, no matter what districts or what individual landmarks or interior landmarks we may choose to pursue, there does need to be a campaign of very significant community support, because Wayne is absolutely right that one building, even the most passionate residents in one building may not be able to sway the commission in a way that if we said, the residents of 55 buildings are passionately interested in, you know, in this moving forward, and we have the support of the community board, and we have the support of elected officials, the council member, the borough, you know, on and on and on. It offers a lot more weight than, you know, just, you know, one signature on a petition, 2 signatures. And I'm not saying that, you know, we have to think of it in those terms, but it does, if we are going to, anything that we are going to pursue would need to be a campaign to some degree.
Yes, there's politics to designation. Let's put it that way. Is that an old hand or new hand, Jim?
It's a new hand. I just wanted to make 2 comments. One of them may have been made already. Hudson View Gardens is neo-Tudor, so that makes it very interesting. And my version is pseudo-Tudor, but anyway. The other thing is, based upon the results we're getting, I personally think we should do yet more outreach.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that I don't think, unless there's a deadline that I'm not aware of, you know, we shouldn't hurry to close. In fact, I believe Wayne originally said this survey was going to be permanently ongoing, which is sort of what it should be. But I think we should do, and I don't necessarily have any suggestions, but if we can do more outreach to get more input, that would be a good thing, because we're already getting, you know, lots of wonderful input.
Vivian?
I think we should, I mean, I know that there are a couple of east of Broadway landmarks already, but there are at least 2 places that I could think of. There's one street, St. Nicholas above 181st Street. I know I should write it up. That I always eye the buildings on the left-hand side because they're sort of turn of the century, some of their beautiful details. And the other is this bunch of buildings that are just where Fort Washington starts off 159, where you have these kind of forts, and then there's one with a Native American head, there's one that says the Dayton there, and I you don't see that shape, I mean, that sort of form elsewhere in the city. There's one of those also on it's called the Broad Dyke, that's on the corner of Dykeman and Broadway.
And Broadway.
But I mean, that's far away from this, but I've always wondered about that style, and that group at the beginning of Fort Washington would also be good. All right, I'll
Respond
find
to the survey.
Yes, sir.
We'll see.
So, question, what will determine if, you know, not which, but what, if a site can go forward for designation? How
Oh, so
are you making
thank you for
it,
that
is that
question.
according to the number of people that support something, or?
So can I get some clarity around what you're at? So this survey, our survey has actually nothing to do with what will be designated or not. It will have to do with what we focus on in our advocacy campaign for designation. But so the Historic Districts Council is a advocacy group. So we're not actually affiliated with the LPC. We do advocacy to the Landmarks Preservation Commission. So we don't get to decide, you know, what is designated and what is not. That's a city agency decision. So ours is an advocacy decision. So we're using this survey to help determine what we're going to advocate for, but certainly nothing on the survey is going to determine, you know, to your point, what gets designated, because we don't have control over that. So we have control over choosing, you know, which sites, which districts we would advocate for, but we can't say whether or not we would be successful. Was that answering your question, or it wasn't?
Well, so let me rephrase my question now that I understand it wasn't clear. What's your criteria to propose or to make a recommendation for a site to be looked at for the purpose of designation?
So let me jump in for a second, because a couple months ago, we talked about sort of a 2-pronged approach. One was to have HDC report to us on what people were saying. And the next step was to reach out to those people and have them come directly. And the same way like Matthew Spady came to about, and talk about what do they see as next steps in advocating for what they have proposed?
Okay.
So that may be what determines, what goes forward is you need a group of interested people, going back to what Tracy was saying, a group of interested people to do the work and to, continually advocate for the designation. At some point, although this will continue to be open, we're going to, reach out to folks and say, the next land use meeting is blah, blah, blah. We'd like you to come and talk to us about this proposed designation and how do you see moving forward with us and with HDC to
Okay.
advocate with LPC for it.
Okay.
Because the whole idea is we're going to community residents to say, what are you interested in? And since you're interested in this, what are you willing to do to make it a reality?
Right. So thank you so much for that, Wayne. That's absolutely correct. The Historic Districts Council, every year we have a program called 6 to Celebrate, where we work with 6 grassroots community groups all across the 5 boroughs on preservation priorities that are important to them. And so part of this survey, when we're seeing, we've had the majority of respondents say that they are interested in a district within these boundaries, we can then reach out, as Wayne said, you expressed interest in this, is there a community coalition? Is there a group? Would you like to apply to HDC 6 to Celebrate program? And then we work with, that community group for the whole year on their advocacy outreach. So, do we need petitions? Do we need letters? Can we write a form letter for our council members saying, as council member, I support, these types of things. How can we do that outreach?
Graham, is that an old hand or a new hand? Graham, are you able to speak? Let me see.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's a new hand.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to say this is great. I'm thrilled to hear this kind of response. I was one of the people who filled out the survey. I just wanted to make a general statement about we just not getting into kind of the either or thinking around this. Our area has been under considered when it comes to historic landmarking period and preservation period. And I think the Shabazz Center absolutely should be landmarked. And we should look at all of those. And, I think that this is a great opportunity, for a historic district uptown. So, I just don't think, let's not negotiate against ourselves.
Certainly not.
I don't look at everything.
I also want to be really clear. It doesn't mean that we're choosing one site, right? It doesn't mean, we're going to choose this historic district and we're not going to advocate for anything else. That's not the reality. So the question is, how do we choose a handful? We're not going to advocate for everything because we can't, but how can we judiciously say, the interest is here. And also maybe there's less response on the particular survey, but we know, that the historical record shows us that there is overwhelming cultural or historic or architectural significance to this building. And we'd like to advocate for that as well, even though there might be a smaller coalition. So certainly there are a number of factors, but we will say that community interest is really meaningful because, to Wayne's point, the community is the driving force, right? It's people in the neighborhood, people on the ground, people who say, I love this and I want to protect this, and are willing to sort of, knock on doors to do that type of thing.
Right. And, we can, wrap this conversation, although it's something to continue, but just as a bit of background information, if memory serves, because I think I worked with the consultant that did the preservation report for the Audubon Ballroom before it was the Shabazz Center. And at that time it was a city-owned, but I guess it still is a city-owned building if they transfer it. And on so many levels, the building was eligible. As we've discussed, the landmarks law, you can be eligible based on architecture, history, or culture. And that might have been one of the buildings where it was eligible in all 3. As a city-owned building, however, my understanding is the Koch administration was not interested in designation. Period, end of story. So as I said, there is politics to designation.
Right. Right,
No kidding, right?
yes.
So, Lucy, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to, meeting with you again, and for my fellow committee members who all say, well, this would be a good building, a good area. Nothing prevents you from responding.
About the survey.
Respond to the survey. I had that conversation with Steve Simon a few days ago. Said, I hope someone said that. I said, well, did you?
He's not going to, but I
No, he
will.
did. He did.
So since this is ongoing, I have a question for you, Chair. Is there a world where we can invite back HDC once every maybe 6 months as? a
Every
survey?
3 months, did you say?
Yes, thank
Or
you.
as often as
Thank
you'd
you.
like.
Yes.
So this way we can continue just having this conversation and see what the new responses are.
Yeah,
saying.
that's the intention. I mean, I think we released the survey when? At the end of
At the
October?
very end of September, and we got our first responses in early October.
Right. And so, then December was kind of I think we're gonna do this a month earlier, but it got pushed. So we can certainly, like, on a quarterly basis.
But if
you know,
Lucy choose to come every.
If Lucy
meeting-
chooses to come every meeting, that's fine.
From you.
Yes, yes.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you all, and yes, of course, it is certainly my job to be monitoring and codifying these responses and sharing them with you. That's what I do. So I am very excited, and of course, I see Wayne monthly because he's on the HCC board as well, so he's very involved in the work that we do as well. So I will certainly come back. This is not the last you'll see of me. And I hope to see some of you, Wayne, at the top of this call, mentioned that we are having our our annual conference this Saturday, the 9th. I hope to see some of you there, and then I would get to see you in person, which would be a pleasure. So thank you all so much, and I hope you have a lovely evening.
I will be there bright and early at 9 a.m. I expect everyone to be on time.
Yes, indeed. 9 a.m. at City College. All right. Well, thank you all. Have a great night.
So Lucy, before you go, maybe for the next meeting, in terms of continuing to follow, maybe you can ask Diego to join us and we could strategize a bit more on outreach on the Spanish language.
That's a great idea. Yes,
Well,
he will
thank you.
absolutely join. Thank you so much. I will make sure that he's in the loop. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So good night. The next item on the agenda is a presentation by the team at Columbia University Medical Center on a proposed new research building. Good to see you again, Sandra Harris. And Sandra, I will give you the floor. You can introduce the team and then you can take it from there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wayne. A very exciting meeting tonight. I was thinking about, how about 839 Riverside Drive? Can we add that to our list? Vivian, let's push for that. So thank you so much.
Survey.
I'll get the survey to Maria Luna and everybody across 158, okay?
Okay.
We'll do it. We'll get it done. So thank you so much. We're very excited tonight to come to you and share about our latest biomedical research building. And I have here with us someone who's very well known to the committee, our Vice President for Facilities Management, Patrick Burke, who will give you sort of the highlights of the new building that will be on Audubon Avenue, actually right across from my office. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but definitely we're very excited about the building, the site. I'm very thrilled about the location because of my interest in Broadway, St. Nicholas, and Amsterdam Avenue. I really want to see more great things happening on the east of Broadway as well. So Patrick, the floor is all yours.
All righty. I guess first off, good evening, everybody. Wayne, good to see you again. Jim, certainly a pleasure. And committee, thank you very much for meeting with me and hosting us this evening. So thank you. perhaps I could share my screen. I'd like to share a couple of slides with you in some form
I
or
think,
fashion.
yeah, Wayne, you need to co-host. I mean, make him co-host, yeah.
Okay, try that.
All right, let's give it a shot here. Can you hear me first off?
Absolutely.
Okay, there we go. So I'd like to say it's a relatively simple building. It might be, that might be a bit of an understatement, but in fact, it's not a very big building. And in many regards, we think of it as an expansion to the Russ Berry building on between 168th and 167th Street. I have about 4 or 5 different slides to share with the team. And what I'd like to do is just basically just give you all a courtesy update, a courtesy presentation to kind of talk through the research expansion and the location and so forth, and I guess to touch on a couple of highlights for that. So here you can see the site plan. First off, let me just ask, can everybody see the image here?
Yes.
Okay, good. St. Nicholas Avenue over on the west side, Audubon Avenue over on the east. On the northerly side is 168th Street. On the southerly side is 167th Street. All along the west side is the existing Russ Berry building. And then just to the east on the southeast corner of 160th Audubon is the school of nursing building that's been complete for about, I think for about 5-6 years now, 4 or 5 years in that time frame. On the south side of that is a 10,000 square foot parcel that's an empty lot. It sits right across the street from the Irving Cancer Research Building. On the southerly side of 167th Street is that Irving Cancer Research Building. And here's an image of the empty lot. For those of you that might kind of remember, is just that the Russ Berry building has been there, I guess, about 25, 28 years, maybe even 30 years at this stage of the game. The building was built with precast panels on the westerly side, on the southerly side, and on the northerly side. The easterly side was always intended to expand out onto the balance of the lot. So going in the easterly direction, we had built out in the northerly half, the School of Nursing building. On the south portion of that, you can see is just that this is a metal panel system that we have there that we put in. And then on the back of the Russ Berry building, this is also a metal panel system, both of which with the intention of future expansion. On this parcel here is this, we have the entrance that goes down into a parking garage. It's employee parking that's down below the existing School of Nursing and the existing Russ Berry building. Then it's pretty much an all at grade empty lot once again today. In terms of the building overview, it's going to function and operate as an expansion to the Russ Berry building. So this is the southerly portion of the Berry building that exists today. It's going to have some dry research and some community types of spaces where people can meet on the ground floor. It's going to have a connection that goes through into the Berry building. You'll also be able to walk through into the nursing school building. And then, as I was saying, and I think as Sandra was articulating, it's largely a laboratory building. So on levels 2 through 6, it will be open, wet laboratory research space with the offices on the south side. Up on the 7th floor, it's going to be what we call core facilities. So that's an expansion into the existing research facility in the Russ Berry building. And then up at the top of the building, we are going to have some symposium space and some laboratory space. We are leaving a little bit of what we call the FAR on the table. We are not fully taking advantage of all the available FAR. It just was not really feasible given the height and area setbacks. You can see sort of the top of the 6th floor here really tops out at this sky exposure plane. The building then steps back, and then we proceed up with mechanical equipment space on the Westbury building. Similar is true on this building, so that we'll do so on both the south side on 167th Street and then on the easterly side, and similar to the School of Nursing. Here's a nice rendering. I think that this, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think we put a lot of time and energy into making sure that the architecture was commensurate with that of basically the Audubon Biomedical Research Park. And, somehow that's sort of an old phrase for the Berry and Irving Cancer Research Building and the Lasker Building. But the architecture is very much commensurate with that. So on the Berry Building, you can see over here, that's the southerly portion. All of the offices on the south portion of this building are going to be in a very similar sort of aesthetic, with punched window openings in that precast component. And then what we do is we transition to a glass wall system, something very similar and complementary to the School of the Nursing that's around on the balance of the north side on Audubon Avenue. This corner here has a rounded component to it. It is what we call the collaboration corner. So there's a series of stairs in there to allow researchers to interact with one another on the various research floors. I think once again, I think what's very important to kind of articulate through is you can see sort of this line here that represents, and then it kind of turns. It's akin to adjacent buildings and represents sort of the highest point of the sky exposure plane. And then what happens is all the infrastructure component and that symposium space sets back from there, and the floor plates above the 6th floor are all smaller. This is a view sort of looking southwest. This is from Audubon Avenue, and this is looking into the entrance facing Audubon Avenue, directly across from where Sandra Harris's office is at 51 Audubon. So we have, an entrance in there today, or I'm sorry, for the new building that does not exist with the School of Nursing building. The School of Nursing is entered on the north side, but we thought that it would be a good idea to have an entrance facing east and over towards Audubon Avenue. I think, let me just kind of take you back one kind of image here. And I think, one thing is just I'm going to leave on that. This is really the last image that I have to share. I just, an interior sort of rendering of the research space inside. And I think kind of a couple things as relates to the use of the building and to the type of the building. I think it's sort of two things. One is the building is really being designed, or was designed, by KPF architects, by the way. They've done a host of different buildings throughout the city and so forth. I think that this is the first building that they've done for Columbia. AKF is the engineer on the project, but the building has been designed with very open modular laboratory floors, so that as science starts to evolve, and science continues to evolve, as we all know, that the laboratory floor plates can kind of adapt and be easily changed to accommodate the different sciences. That's a very important consideration for us when we're planning and working through the building. The other component that's immensely, I think, important, and to kind of, share with all of you, is that it is one of the absolute most progressive research buildings in New York City and in the United States. And that's a heck of a statement to say, but what I'll say is what that really translates into is from an energy efficiency perspective. And it is, if not the first, one of the very first, and I can't confirm the true statement of it's the first, but I can say it's one of the first across the state of New York and in the city of New York that's an all-electric building. So we are exceeding all the local law 97 requirements for energy efficiency and for carbon, and for the use of carbon fuels to heat the building. A lot of very significant words around that, and so I use my words very carefully. I don't want to misstate. But the building is going to be basically heated by all electricity. And as the grid becomes cleaner, we are completely ready to basically go to a carbon neutral building once the Con Edison grid kind of gets there. Till that time, is that we're using what's called air source heat pumps strictly to heat the building, which is highly progressive step for a research building, as you likely know or may know, is that research is 100% outside air. So there's a very sort of intensive sort of energy consumption. And so this is one of the most important sorts of advancements in making this, and really sort of minimizing and reducing and in the long run, eliminating the use of carbon fuels, i.e. natural gas and number two, oil for heating the building. And then it's just that kind of goes hand in hand with that. It's just that the envelope, all of the building management control systems and so forth, all support the high energy efficiency of the building. That's again making it one of the most efficient all electric buildings in the city. I think that's about it in terms of the overview of the building. What our game plan here is to start construction in June for the building. And with that, any questions?
Anthony.
Hi, I have a few questions. So in one of the photos of the existing plot, it looks like it's currently being used as a parking lot. I know that you had mentioned that there's also some underground parking, but just considering that you currently are using it to put, I'm assuming, Columbia vehicles on that lot, has there been any thought about where you're going to relocate those vehicles so they just don't end up on the street after the building is built?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is, when we built the nursing school building on the north side, what we did is I built all underground parking underneath this site here. So we're looking at an abbreviated construction schedule of about 28 months for this building. And so today, all that we store on an interim basis is our security vehicles, sometimes at night and so forth. Those security vehicles would, basically get sprinkled through other sorts of drive-throughs and so forth. It's really a very small number of university-owned cars that are there today. You can almost see it. It's just I have my security vehicles that are there. They're going to just get relocated onto our existing other types of locations. All of the other spaces during construction, and it's a very good point. It's a very good question. Is what we've done is we've kept a little bit of room in our 100 Haven Avenue parking garage and in a parking garage on the south side of this building in the Irving Cancer Research Building to accommodate, I think it's about 100 cars that are parked in here today. And what we're going to be doing is that we're going to a full valet parking to accommodate these cars in our other existing lots during the course of the construction. It's not going to be the full course of the construction. It's only going to be till which point about the second floor gets onto the building, and then I can reintroduce the cars back into the lot down underneath the building and underneath the Berry building, underneath the School of Nursing building.
But just to clarify, you mentioned underground parking. Is there underground parking below the School of Nursing, Berry, and the lot, or just the two buildings?
It is underneath all three. It's only about, Wayne, it's only about half under the Rustberry building. I have a lot of mechanical equipment space down there, but it's underneath all of the School of Nursing building and completely under this building, with the exception of the ramp.
So the new research building will be constructed on top of existing underground parking?
That's right. Yep, that's what we planned. I put all the footings and foundations and the parking in underneath before
Okay.
into the last when we built the School of Nursing.
Yeah, actually, I see Jim Berlin and then Daniel. Jim?
Thank you. As a retired physics teacher, I'm so thrilled about the energetics of this building. The reality, of course, is at some point, other than maybe pumping a little hydrogen around, everything's going to have to be electrical, which presumably will be entirely green at some glorious point in the future. And you're ready for that. The fact that you're using heat pumps, which is pretty much the most efficient way of heating, is also, as what you should be doing. And the other thing, of course, since you work for them, Columbia University itself has been committed to making itself as green as possible. And this is a perfect example of that. And I'm thrilled that one of our important neighbors is doing this very forward-looking thing. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Jim. And I might just add is that the Columbia Plan 2030, in parallel to New York City Local Law 97, that this building is going to meet or exceed, and truthfully exceed, just about every single requirement of both. So thank you very much.
Daniel, I have a quick question, regarding to the slide that has like all the floors. I saw on one part of it, it said community space. Is that public or is that private?
We're working that through right now. Sandra is really sort of at the spearhead of the entire conversation. Our intention is to have some additional community types of spaces. It's really, around sort of community health. And so, Sandra is really leading that with a couple of the different doctors, and maybe Sandra, I don't know, was there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, so it is being sort of as when we say public space, as you know, we make our spaces available to community use to the largest extent possible. With this space, it will be more community engagement space where we'll have our research scientists working with our various community advisory board members in training, research dissemination, training, like the work that we do with community health workers and some of the other mental health initiatives that we have with our scientists. So we're hoping to have a highly active, I should say, a space where these types of engagement happens between our faculty and community members. So the answer is yes.
The answer is
yes.
Cool. Can you go back to that slide again? Just
Yeah,
so
sure. Let's see. Get the plan. We get the perspective.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, down on the ground floor, we have some meeting spaces and so forth. So it's really sort of multi-purpose space and sort of community engagement space. So, excuse me. As Sandra had articulated, it's a work in progress, but absolutely the intention of, the institution to kind of build the community health component.
You mentioned that building will function as an expansion of Rustberry. But from the floor plan, it appears that you can also access the building from the School of Nursing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. Now it's really, functionally, can you see the floor plan that I have here?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is on the left. They're fundamentally the same plan, Wayne. But the building operates really as an expansion of the research building. And you can, for what I might say is that we're going to be sharing the elevator bank and we're adding one new elevator. The bathrooms are getting, utilized from the Berry building. The fire egress stairs largely are all getting used out of the Rustbury building. This is not a fire stair in sort of the southeast corner. That's sort of a collaboration and interactive stair. But on the ground floor, and I think several of the other floors, there's a passage so that people can get through into the nursing building. But it's really, you know, the nursing students and the nursing school likes to kind of operate a little bit more autonomously. And as I said, the chief function is research, and the primary focus is to really connect through on a research basis.
Okay, Jim, is that an old hand or a new hand? Never mind.
So,
Sorry.
so first I want to thank you for going all electric. And for those that are not familiar with Local Law 97, your building grade is in relation to other buildings in your area. So technically speaking, no, more than just technically speaking, this building, once it is completed, is actually going to
Set the standard?
elevate the grade of the buildings around it. And this is something to, I want to thank you for that. Is that going to be like a passive house building?
You know, the passive house, I think, is really geared on the residential side.
Oh,
By
Yeah.
just about every accountable measure that, you know, I can speak to is the yardstick for this building is Local Law 97. And as Jim Berlin quickly picked up on, is the use of heat pumps to generate, you know, the heating in the building. I would say, I think perhaps to answer your question a little bit more, is I would say it's sort of 2 points. We are actively working through a campus-wide initiative on how we are going to meet Local Law 97. And it's honestly, it's about a 25. It is a 26-year initiative, right? That basically takes you out to 2025. I'm sorry, 2050. So this building, in many regards, is going to set the standard for any new construction, without a shadow of a doubt. But it also goes hand in hand with the upgrade to the balance of the research buildings and all of the buildings to meet Local Law 97.
I have 2 more quick questions. One, in terms of Local Law 15, are you required to treat the windows? In terms of, okay, yes, birds, Local Law 15, how do they phrase it? I don't remember.
Yeah,
So birds are not flying into the building.
that's right. I think if I think your question is that there's a requirement in glass wall systems so that a bird cannot, the bird basically sees the building as opposed to a clear piece of glass where the bird doesn't see the building, and with the intention that the bird does not fly into the side of the building and kill itself. So yes, this building has that. We've, you know, it's a requirement of the design. We've fully worked that into the equation. So there's a frick pattern that goes onto the facade of the building that basically helps, you know, the birds and makes it a visible building from, I guess, Superman and all the birds that might be flying around here.
Yeah, well, we just lost El Flaco, so.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
And
No more Flacco, stop.
the last question is, how many street trees are you going to plant around the new building?
I would say at least, I'm sorry, street trees?
Correct.
Okay, you know, I don't know the number. I don't know the exact number off of from that, but what I would say is that there is what we did is just that along Audubon Avenue on the ground floor. What we did is we pulled the facade back on the ground level, and that we have you can see is just the planters that are here that we're doing enhanced sort of street scape landscaping
Mhm.
that, does not exist on any of the other, well, I can't say
Yes.
the other buildings, but we specifically pulled the street, the ground floor back to accommodate additional landscaping on the exterior of the building.
And the block already has 3, I'm counting 6, and then 3 more, about 9 in that block area. So I'm not sure that you can do more, but we already have a few.
Daniel?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that whole thing of the city of Yes, at one point it did say like for like new developments, like to actually make, like to beautify like certain blocks and stuff. I forgot which one it was, part of the economic development. Like, do they get hit with that or?
Well, it's not in place yet, so
Right,
if
yeah.
they're starting in June,
Yeah.
but I think that was looking at the streetscape so that you don't have like blank walls
Oh,
on
okay,
the first
okay,
floor,
okay,
and
okay.
clearly this building does not.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Correct.
That's the case.
So, it's what, 10 minutes to 9, and we have another thing. So my understanding is, this is an informational, presentation, that there's no action that is required of the community board, but you wanted us to know what was going on so that when construction starts, people don't say, oh my God, what is that?
That's right.
Okay, great. So, and we appreciate that because not everyone will take the time to keep us informed so that when questions come to the board, we can say what is and is not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also I'll remind everyone that as we begin construction, we'll start sharing what we call the 2 weeks look ahead, just so that we know as a community what to expect in terms of constructions or any changes or noise, etc.
Right, so before you go, I mean, just one bit of information, I think 1972, what was then the Harlem State Office Building and is now the Adam Clayton Power State Office Building is an all-electric building.
Oh, really?
So I don't think the mechanical systems are as energy efficient as this building is, but that is an all-electric building.
Yeah.
In terms of your construction, what are you doing about MWBE participation in contracting or subcontracting? What are you doing in terms of diversity in your labor force and hiring?
We work very closely with the team down at Tanya Pope, down at the Manhattanville team and down in the Morningside campus.
I know Tanya.
We have very clear guidelines and goals. At the absolute minimum, it's going to be the goal is to have 35% MWL as minority women and locally owned contractors. The goal is to have at least 40% minority and women labor participation. So we have I think a pretty robust infrastructure, committed to these goals and to these guidelines. We track it through the bid tracking. Whenever we're out for bid, we track it that way. And then we also track it on the procurement side, on the payment side and so forth. So there's a big commitment. There's a big infrastructure here at the university to kind of, follow through on these commitments.
And do you have a construction manager who will be taking care of this?
We do. It's
And who's that?
It's Driscoll. And Driscoll is a subsidiary of Structure Tone.
Okay. Anything else on this? So,
Nice building.
Sandra, Patrick, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank
I
you
would
all.
say, keep us informed, and when it's safe, those of us who like construction in progress would love a tour.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We like that. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely.
We're happy to share.
Right. I think I saw a hand somewhere. Before you go, hang on a second. Yes. Dave,
Hi, thanks so
Hi,
much.
Dave.
Hi, Ms. Harris, how are you?
Hi.
So I attended the meeting tonight because actually I saw the agenda item and I didn't know where this building would be. The location wasn't mentioned. And for a moment there, my heart went aflutter because I thought we might be talking about West 218 and Broadway.
I know.
Is there anything you can share about that lot that's now vacant and just sort of sitting there attracting graffiti in terms of land use and
No,
development?
no, Dave. As I indicated, the lot, there were some structural issues as per the Department of Building, and we had to bring down the structure. As of right now, there are no development plans for that lot. I think
Okay,
I got
thank you.
an email from one of the board members, the members of your boards as well, but at this moment, we don't have any plans for development.
Thank you.
Okay.
great. So with that, once again, Sandra, Patrick, thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Great.
Thank you
And
all.
so the next item on the agenda is
Go
a
home early.
Yeah, too late for that. Late for that.
Bye.
The Hispanic Society of America. And actually, those of it, if we've been there, there's an exterior art exhibit, the yellow, linguine stuff that you can walk through. LPC approved it, I think, for a 1-year installation, and it'll be explained to us, but the game plan is to extend that. And to get it extended, it needs to go through a review process. So we have with us Jennifer, is it Weisenhunt?
Wissenhunt, very close.
Wissenhunt.
Yes.
The floor is yours. Why don't you, and also we have Natalie Espino, who used to be with Community Board 12, but she left us. Why don't you walk us through what is proposed and what you need from us?
Wayne, I miss you terribly. I just want to take a few seconds to say that I am, for those who don't remember me from back in CB12, this is Natalie Espino. I am Director of Education and Academic Programs at the Hispanic Society Museum and Library. I am here standing in for our Deputy Director, Margaret Connors McQuaid, who is covering an event happening here at the Hispanic Society, which I was missing to be with y'all. I'm not mad. But that being said, I'm also here to answer any questions that are more appropriate for staff. Although I will say anything outside the scope of Jennifer's wonderful presentation, I urge you all to reach me offline, attend our tours, or join the CB12 Parks and Cultural Affairs Committee, where we can talk about programming and other artistic decisions and programmatic decisions happening at the Hispanic Society.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thanks, Natalie. So I would like to share my screen, but I think I need to be given permission.
So let me get to that.
And I don't think you can also see me on camera. I had a little trouble with the link, so my apologies on that.
Don't I see you as a panelist? That's odd. No, but she's already. I'm only seeing 4 panelists, and she's not one of them, which is odd.
Is she under the regular attendee list?
No.
The link that I was sent, there was an ID that for some reason I wasn't able to input anywhere. Oh, here it is. Join as a panelist.
Right, except you're already functioning as a panel, which is odd.
Try promoting her to being whatever.
We just did. We just did.
That should do
Let's
the
see.
trick.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. Hi, everyone. All right, let me share my screen. Let's go. Share. Okay. All right. Do you see my screen okay? And can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, Great. Well, good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Jennifer Wisenhunt, and I'm an architect at Beyer Blender Bell Architects and Planners. And tonight, I'm really happy to be here with everyone and present this outdoor artwork installation project at the Hispanic Society, again, as part of our application for the Landmarks Preservation Commission. So let me just flip through here. Here we go. Okay. So here we see a site plan of the Hispanic Society campus. As you see, the museum occupies 3 buildings on the historic Audubon Terrace. We're between 155th and 156th Streets west of Broadway. And as I'm sure you all know, the terrace was designated in 1979, I believe, as part of the Audubon Terrace Historic District by the Preservation Commission. And our application focus for tonight is a piece of outdoor artwork named Penetrable by Venezuelan artist Jesus Rafael Soto. And the piece is currently installed on the campus's upper terrace, centered in front of the museum's east wing of their main building, which is this area right here in yellow. And it was initially installed in June of last year after we got an LPC staff level approval for a 1-year installation period. So we're here today to review the piece and to extend the installation for another 2 years until June of 2026. And like Wayne mentioned earlier, this extension requires a commission level review at the LPC. So as part of that process, we're here tonight to review it with you. And so before we review the piece and the installation itself, just a little bit of background, a little bit more on the permit process. In terms of the permit history and timeline, the initial approach that we discussed with LPC all stemmed from our conversations with them and the client, mainly relating to schedule and some of the other works and applications we had going on at that time. So when we initially approached LPC about this installation and to review the permit application process options with them, we were reviewing this piece and another piece at the same time. This one and then the other one was actually installed last fall on the Broadway terrace for only a few months and has since been removed. And so due to the installation schedule we were trying to maintain, LPC's recommended approach was to submit both pieces as part of a single application for a 1-year permit that could be approved again at staff level. And then following installation, go back and apply for the full commission level review of the Soto piece to extend the installation for the full 3-year period. And that's where we are today. So if you have not been to the museum in a while, here are some images of the upper terrace prior to the piece's installation. So here we are, we're on the upper terrace looking east. So the museum's main building is on our right and we're looking towards Broadway. And then here are a couple images showing the piece after installation. As you can see, the piece consists of an open cubic steel frame, which supports a canopy of aluminum channels, and that has amber color plastic PVC tubing that's secured through holes in the top, and then they hang down. The sculpture is approximately 17 feet square by 19 feet tall, and the steel frame is anchored to the existing concrete slab that's located below the brick pavers that you see in the images. So to anchor the steel frame to the slab, just a bit of mechanics, we removed and salvaged the existing brick pavers so we could reinstall the frame and anchor it to the concrete. And then after the frame installation was complete, we reinstalled the pavers in the original configuration. And then where needed, we procured new pavers that match the existing. We cut them to size to fit around the frame. And then once the piece is removed, the salvage brick pavers will be reinstalled to match the existing paver setting pattern. So that's it in a nutshell. We think the piece is really wonderful. It's a really great addition to the terrace. We think it really helps activate the terrace and bring guests and visitors into the museum. And we hope you feel the same. Thanks for your time. Let me know if you have any questions.
And when is LPC scheduled to consider this?
We have been scheduled for the hearing April 9th.
Jim Berlin?
We can't hear you.
Jim, you're muted.
Something had to disappear from my screen so I could reach the button. You know how this works. I actually, because the community board visited the museum a while ago, a bunch of us had the opportunity to enjoy the sculpture. And it's really a delightful thing. It's very interesting to walk through And so I am in favor of whatever it is you're asking for to keep this thing in place, because I like
It's particularly nice because we also had alcohol.
it. You had alcohol.
That's right. Anthony?
Just out of curiosity, maybe this is more of a staff related question, but how did it come to be? So, you know, what was the background? How was it brought to the Hispanic Society? And then what was the decision process like to decide to put it in the terrace?
I will pass it over to Natalie. I'm not.
Yes, so all artistic direction, these are curatorial decisions at the museum. So, but there were conversations with the gallery that that runs the legacy pieces of this particular Venezuelan artist, and it happened to be that last summer, when the museum was reopening its main building after an extended period of years of closure renovations, that it was the centennial of the birth of Jesus Rafael Soto. And it was also a good example of the commitment of new leadership to continue to activate the terrace so that the community is brought in more, but also a recommitment to modern and contemporary pieces by people from the Hispanic and Lusophone world that are part of the original mission of the Hispanic Society of America.
I have a super cool, I'm glad that this is happening. I have a quick question, just out of curiosity. You see that one on the last slide where the trees is at? Why does it say development center? Is there something that's going to be built there by any chance in the future?
Oh, are you talking about the site plan right here?
Yeah, I'm just out of curiosity. I just like see development. That's all.
Yeah, I think that is, it's right now currently an empty lot that is owned by Hispanic Society. So when my office was brought on board as part of, you know, a master planning review, and then to do some, you know, the reopening of the main building work that we did last summer, looking at other options or potential options for what that site maybe could be in the future, but no current plans right now as far as I know.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to know.
I'm sorry, so you're
I will add that it's a shame that our Columbia friends left, because one of my favorite memories is the first year medical students gliding through en masse into this sculpture.
Other questions, comments for the Hispanic Society on this?
I hope they do more stuff like this. It's cool.
Yeah, very
I
cool.
love it. I love it.
Yeah, I moved to support the
Yeah.
the 3-year extension.
2 years.
2 years.
Changing their ask?
Yeah.
Make it
Yeah.
3 years.
So it's moved by Anthony Viola. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
We have a second and third?
I'll third it. No. I love art. I love art.
Okay, so what we will do, just to explain for attendees who are not board members, unlike a general meeting, at committee meetings, members of the public who are participating can vote. So what we will do is I will ask for first committee members to vote. If there are other board members present, and there was one earlier, I don't know if she still is with us, and then members of the public who wish to vote can do so. You do not have to. So there is a resolution supporting the 2-year extension of an outdoor art installation of the Soto Penetrable to June 2026. It was moved and seconded. For committee members, those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Any committee members opposed or abstaining? Thank you. Do we still have any other board members present? That would be Tanisha. I don't think she's still with us.
She was, I saw her.
Right, but she's gone.
Yeah.
So members of the public now who wish to vote, if you could raise your hands, digitally. Members of the public who are opposed. Abstaining, so no one wants, none, members of the public, that which is just fine. No votes from the public. So with that, Natalie and Jennifer, we are through with you, but of course, always look forward to, the next opening event, Natalie.
They have a current exhibition in there, right? Is it still the Dominican one, right?
We just opened the Dominican Yorks at the Hispanic Society, the launching exhibition of what will be an annual program out at the En Alto Manhattan. So these are local artists. And so these are 3 Dominican-born Washington Heights-based artists who have this wonderful dialogue exhibition in our what we were calling the project room. I think we're going to be rebranding that. And that has, we've gotten a great deal of buzz about that. Then our collection Without Borders, highlights from the Hispanic Society, will close on March 30th. So come and see it before it closes, temporarily being taken down so that we can open in mid-April. Word Shimmering Seas, Enrique Martinez Celaya and Velázquez. So this is a Cuban-born, LA-based artist having an intervention related to our portrait of a little girl by Diego Velázquez, one of our 17th century master works. So I can go on and on and on. Wayne and Jim, no, you learned firsthand during my tour. Please do follow us, stay in touch. And come back for those events.
Nice, super cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie.
Is there any old business? Is that old business?
I don't know, so I'm just gonna say that.
We should ask the question just for Steve.
No, I mean, okay, I was kind of, just wanna, verbalize my disappointment with LPC, not LPC, no. I'm talking about 156th Street,
The row houses?
yes,
58th Street.
158, I'm sorry. The building that was
The
now,
demolition
okay.
permit.
So I just want to say that it's disturbing that it's happening. And, here we are, we had a wonderful conversation with, and I understand it's a totally different, thing, but we had a wonderful conversation with HBC. HDC, thank you. And we are thinking, there is almost like some sort of like a hopeful, right? Like happy, hopeful discussion about potential, I don't know, conversation about either areas or buildings that potentially may come to a discussion in regards to preservation. And this is kind of coming after we learned that there is a demolition that was approved by DOB for an area that, how many years you said? 15 years that you're working on that?
Yeah, I've been working it since 2015, but Wayne was saying.
Well, it's been 15
2009.
years since Community Board 12
Mhm.
expressed to the Landmarks Preservation Commission in the resolution when it supported the designation of Audubon Park, that it should work expeditiously to either expand the district to include the row houses or to designate them in their own. And since then, there have been a number of RFEs, a number of approaches to designate them, and over 15 years,
And that started in
LPC has
2015.
failed to act, which is why when we say there's, politics to designation, but there's also the need for advocacy and all that, because unless it's a high-profile building downtown affiliated with a rich person, but it's not going to get the attention.
We got a 6 to celebrate. What
Yeah.
did it do us?
So, so I'm just, I'm verbalizing my disappointment. It's just like, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because the city is not listening to what we are asking. And I'm not saying that, the LPC is going to designate anything that we are proposing, but, working on something for 15 years, and I feel, I didn't work on it, okay? But working on something for 15 years, and to get like a demolition order sent to us, which is like, I think they have to start in 10 days or something like that. It's disrespectful, and it's a slap in the face.
Well, I think it's the demolition order is, I think, less a slap in the face than the responses that have been received from LPC, because I think in each instance, the reason they gave for why they couldn't or were not interested,
bogus.
The stakeholders would, for example, go to Andrew Dokar at the Columbia Preservation Program, and he would say, oh, no, because, in some other district downtown or in Brooklyn, they did exactly that. I think one time they said, well, they can't do a district where it's only one side of the street. And I said, well, no, that's not true, because they did it somewhere else, and like, you can't do it because of whatever. So I think that is more the slap in the face. The reasons being bogus is one word, or just somewhat disingenuous. If you've already done it, if you've done it in neighborhoods that are perhaps not neighborhoods of color, how is it that you're now coming out with these as the rationale, when in fact, looking at your own actions, it doesn't appear to be truthful? Anthony?
I just wanted to add, you may recall that as part of Housing Manhattanites, the Manhattan Borough President's report from last year, that district is being planned to be rezoned to include commercial use, and I had emphasized that specific block would be a terrible block to have any kind of stores or commercial use on, because there is no parking. And I'm just curious whether, because we don't have any information about what the development will be, I will be curious as time passes whether
I think it's either a 14 or 17-story residential building.
Purely residential.
Right. But I mean, I looking at the map, I think currently, as you go down the hill, part of it's already zoned manufactured commercial, which is odd, but it's further down the hill.
Hudson Store.
And the parking lot, Safety City, which is city-owned, that I believe was in or is in the borough president's housing report and proposed for development. But as Steve pointed out, it's been proposed for development like many times, and and that's a site that's owned by the city, so they can actually move on it. So we'll see what happens with that, but it's yeah.
So I brought it up because I think it's important to mention, and Morgan just mentioned, in my view. I mean, I would go as far as a resolution to really, I don't know, it may be. Yeah, it's beyond disappointing.
Yeah, but I think going back to what we discussed before, the politics of it, I think that's something where we need to talk to our elected officials, the two council reps, even though, we've got different sides, it's like need to come together, with the borough president's office and basically say, what are you doing to advance? And to some extent, it's not just what are you doing, because LPC at the end of the day is gonna respond to the mayor's office. They may not, respond to the council, but it depends on where the political pressure comes from to at least pay attention.
Oh, Gail put a lot of pressure.
Right, but I mean, it
on
needs,
Mark to some degree.
yeah,
so-
it needs to be consistent, but I mean, that's the point.
Is there anyone to invite from the mayor's office to come and comment?
I don't know, I raised that question with the office regarding something else. Is there, do we have a contact
Mhm.
with the mayor's office that we can, I think that was concerning, the guidelines, since we sent the reso to the mayor's office.
Right.
I was looking at the map, that was like in the Housing Manhattanites, that's like one of like their
Yeah.
section, to change into proposed C6 to / C6-3 district.
Yeah, it's,
Sorry, I just wanted to flag too that after we were sending those emails, someone from the borough president's office reached out to me and let me know that they forwarded that email to both Al Taylor and to Sean because they weren't on the email. He confirmed that that's not Carmen's district, just FYI.
perfect.
So what do we want to do about it?
Lie down and not.
No, I understand we can't do anything but what do we want to do in terms of, do we want to, invite the mayor's office here to just let's talk about it. They need to understand that we are paying attention and we're not going to just move on without any, further conversation about that.
That's what I said, I don't know, but we need to find out who's the contact person in the mayor's office that we can.
We may figure
Yeah.
this out on Saturday at that meeting. There may be somebody there.
True. So, but that's the point. We need to, and for that matter, we can ask, Carmen or Sean, who at the mayor's office we can or
Right.
should reach out to. Is there any new business? Is there something happening at the Children's Art Carnival, Daniel, that you want to tell us about?
Oh my God, they just like sent me it's funny that I saw your email and I'm supposed to be, well, yeah, cause today I had to do an interview. Let me see if I find this.
But you're not telling us. Is
I
it
know,
something?
yeah.
at the Children's Art
Yeah,
Carnival?
sorry, I'm getting to it. So I'm to be leading a workshop. Basically, they're highlighting me and they're having a Friday social at from
This
6,
Friday?
yeah, from 6 to 8. So from 6 to 8 at I can't find the address, but I know it's
Hamilton Terrace.
yeah.
Right.
I think it's 62 Hamilton Terrace.
Let me see if I can find that over here. It probably is. If it is, it's that. It's 6. It should be
I know the acting executive director.
there. Sweet. So I'm supposed to be doing a workshop
Is
there.
that how he won?
No, I don't think so.
A friend of mine works there, and he wanted to highlight me because obviously, like I've been continuing just my pursuit as an artist for a while now, and it's people are looking. So that's I'm grateful for that, and that my work is like being like seen, and I'll be having like a workshop. I'll just like talking about like the like my whole things that I do, the process, the creative process, how I got to where I got to. And then after that, a week later to that, I'm going to be having not a workshop, but like I will be teaching that day. So I'll be teaching like how to create anything from
Had to be like you?
not how to be like me, but how utilize a tool where you can create your own thing if you want to like design something or some kind of like problem solving tool. So with basic shapes, basically.
Right, so that is Friday, March 8th at the Children's Art Carnival, which is located at 62 Hamilton Terrace.
Yes.
And at what time?
Between 6 and 8 p.m.
6 and 8 p.m.
We're gonna have like a 30-minute kind of like mixer, and then after that, I'll be getting into like my whole workshop part of it. I did the workshop on Zoom. It's very odd doing a workshop in like enclosed room. So I'm like, I'm happy that I'm gonna be doing it in front of people because I do better doing that kind of stuff with people and Zoom. I'm just like there like I can't talk about myself and just say being like an empty vacuum. Like this is, and I told them I have to stop this. Like, I feel weird right now, but I'm super excited for it, and I hope all of you come and check it out.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Wonderful.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There you go.
It is 9:25. We are adjourned.
There you go.
Wait.
Good night, all.